A desperate call, the crystalline spires of Zephyr Prime had stood for 3,000 years, their translucent walls filtering the gentle light of the binary suns into rainbow patterns that danced across the city's flowing canals. Today, those same spires cracked and shattered under the relentless assault of weapons that turned matter into nothing more than scattered atoms. Ambassador, Kale Rin pressed his scaled hands against the viewing wall of the orbital sanctuary, watching his world. Eye below, the Zephyrian's gill slits fluttered rapidly with distress as another section of the capital city simply vanished, consumed by the dark energy beams of the Void Hunters. His people had always been creatures of peace, their aquatic nature-making, them natural diplomats and healers. For 5 centuries, they had believed the ancient enemy was gone forever. They had been wrong. Sir, the outer colonies have gone silent, reported Communications Officer Niravel, her normally melodious voice cracking with grief. Zephyr 7, Zephyr 12, and the research stations in the Coral Nebula. All of them gone. Kale Rin closed, his eyes feeling the weight of 3 billion souls pressing down on his shoulders. As the senior ambassador of the Zephyrian Confederation, he had spent his life building bridges between species, fostering understanding and cooperation across the galaxy. None of that mattered now. The Void Hunters didn't negotiate. They didn't take prisoners. They simply consumed everything in their path, converting organic matter into fuel for their biomechanical ships. How many ships do we have left? He asked, though he already knew the answer would break what remained of his heart. 17 hospital ships, 23 research vessels, and 8 diplomatic cruisers, Niravel replied. None of them armed, sir. Our defense platforms were the first targets. They're all gone. Through the transparent walls of the sanctuary, Kale Rin could see the Void Hunter fleet hanging in space like a disease. Their ships were nightmares of twisted metal and pulsing organic components, vessels that seemed to breathe in hunger. Each one was the size of a small moon, and there were dozens of them. The largest, the flagship that the ancient texts called the Devourer of Worlds, cast a shadow across half the planet. Sir, Niravel's voice interrupted his thoughts. We're receiving a transmission from the Devourer. They want to speak with you. Kale Rin nodded slowly. He had studied the ancient records, knew what came next. The Void Hunters always offered the same choice before the final consumption began. The communication screen flickered to life, revealing something that barely qualified as a face. Creature's features shifted constantly, flesh flowing like liquid over a mechanical skull. Its eyes were holes that seemed to lead into the darkness between stars. Zephyrian, the thing spoke in a voice like grinding metal. I am Harvester Prime, of the infinite hunger. Your species has had 500 years to forget us. Now you remember. We remember, Kale Rin replied, struggling to keep his voice steady. What do you want? The creature's mouth stretched into something that might have been a smile. What? We have always wanted. Biomass. Energy. The essence of life itself. You may choose how you provide it. Surrender your people willingly, and their deaths will be swift. Resist, and we will harvest them slowly, keeping them alive as long as possible to maximize the fear. Fear makes the meat sweeter. Kale Rin felt his diplomatic training kick in, the automatic responses that had served him well in 1,000 negotiations. Surely we can reach some accommodation. The Zephyrian Confederation has resources, knowledge that could benefit your species. Perhaps a limited tribute system? We tried such arrangements before, Harvester Prime replied. Your people proved inadequate, too peaceful, too soft. The fear was barely appetizing. No, we will take everything this time. You have 1 rotation of your world to consider our offer. Then the real harvest begins. The screen went dark, leaving Kale Rin staring at his own reflection. Behind him, Niravel was weeping silently, her gills fluttering in a rhythm that spoke of absolute despair. Around the sanctuary, other Zephyrians had gathered, refugees from the orbital stations and deep space facilities. They looked to him for answers he didn't have, for hope he couldn't provide. "Sir," Niravel said softly, "there is one option we haven't considered." Kale Rin turned to face her. "What option?" "The Galactic Emergency Protocol. We could send distress call to all known spacefaring civilizations. Someone might be close enough to help." "The protocol hasn't been used in over 800 years, Kale Rin replied. "And who would answer? The Altarian Empire is too far away. The Crystalline Collective would never risk their ships against the Void Hunters. The other races, ... double quotes, he paused, considering. They would either be too weak to help or too afraid to try." "There are others," Niravel said quietly. "Species on the periphery. Some we've never contacted directly." Kale Rin accessed the Galactic database, his mind racing through possibilities. Most civilizations within range were either non-military by nature or already too frightened of the Void Hunters to intervene. His eyes stopped on one entry, highlighted in red warning text. A small yellow star system, 47 light-years from Zephyr Prime. The species designation made his blood chill. Humans classification: Deathworld. Apex predator. Warning: quarantine species do not contact. "No," he whispered, reading the file. "This cannot be accurate." According to the database, humans had evolved on a planet so dangerous that most galactic species couldn't survive there for more than a few hours. Their world experienced weather, phenomena that could destroy cities, tectonic activity that reshaped continents, and an atmosphere so corrosive that it would burn the lungs of most oxygen-breathing species. Worse, the humans themselves were described as persistence hunters who could track prey for days without rest. Apex predators who had conquered their entire world through violence and cunning. The military assessment was even more disturbing. Humans had developed weapons capable of destroying their own planet multiple times over. They practiced warfare as both science and art, creating strategies that the galactic military theorists found both brilliant and terrifying. Most concerning of all, they seemed to view death in battle as an acceptable outcome, even an honorable one. "Sir, look at this," Niravel said, pointing to another section of the file. "It says they have faster-than-light travel. They could reach us in less than a week." "They could also destroy us themselves," Kale Rin replied. "Look at their classification. They're quarantined for a reason. The Galactic Council considers them more dangerous than the Void Hunters." "But sir," Niravel's voice carried a desperate edge, "what if that's exactly what we need? What if the only thing that can stop a monster is another monster?" Kale Rin stared at the red warning text for a long moment. Outside, another section of Zephyr Prime disappeared in a flash of dark energy. Time was running out. In 18 hours, the real harvest would begin, and his people would face a death so horrible that even the ancient texts could barely describe it. "Prepare the emergency broadcast," he said finally. "All frequencies, maximum range. Sir, if we contact the humans, then we pray that the galaxy's monsters still remember what it means to be human." The message recorded quickly, Kale Rin's words carrying across space at the speed of light. "This is Ambassador Kale Rin of the Zephyrian Confederation. Our worlds are under attack by an ancient enemy known as the Void Hunters. Our defenses have failed. Our people are dying. We are sending this message to all spacefaring civilizations in range, regardless of quarantine status or diplomatic relations. If you can hear this, if you have the power to help, please come. We offer everything we have, all our knowledge and resources, to anyone who can save us from extinction." The transmission shot out across the galaxy, carrying with it the coordinates of Zephyr Prime and a complete tactical analysis of the Void Hunter fleet. 47 light-years away, it would reach a small blue world, orbiting a yellow star in exactly 31 minutes. Deep Space Station Omega hung in the darkness beyond. Pluto's orbit, its massive sensor arrays constantly scanning the void for signs of extraterrestrial intelligence. Communications specialist Maria Santos had been on duty for 6 hours when every alarm in the monitoring station began screaming at once. "What the hell?" she muttered, her fingers flying over the control panels. The screens filled with data that made no sense. The deep space sensors had detected an artificial transmission, something that had never happened in the 40 years since the station had been operational. "Director Walsh to communications immediately," she announced over the intercom, her voice tight with excitement and fear. Director James Walsh arrived within minutes, his gray hair disheveled from sleep. He had commanded Omega Station for 15 years, and in all that time, the most exciting thing that had happened was a false alarm from a pulsar. This was different. This was what they had all been hoping and dreading in equal measure. "Play the message," he ordered. The translation algorithms had already processed the alien language, converting it into clear English. As Kale Rin's words filled the command center, the duty crew exchanged glances of disbelief and growing horror. First contact. An alien species asking for military help. An enemy so terrible that a peaceful civilization was willing to contact quarantined monsters for assistance. "Sir," Maria said quietly, "according to the attached data, these Void Hunters have already destroyed 17 civilizations. They're not just conquerors. They're like a plague. They consume everything organic and use it to fuel their expansion." Walsh studied the tactical information that had come with the message. The Void Hunter fleet was massive, each ship the size of a city. Their weapons could disintegrate matter at the molecular level. They had been moving through the galaxy for thousands of years, leaving nothing but dead worlds in their wake. "Get me Admiral Chun at Fleet Command," Walsh ordered. "Emergency priority. Tell her we have a Code 1 first contact situation." As the communication request went out, Walsh found himself staring at the star charts included in the alien message. Somewhere out there, 47 light-years away, an entire civilization was facing extinction. They had looked at humanity's file in their galactic database, seen all the warnings and quarantine notices, and still decided that the monsters from Earth were their best hope for survival. Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the emergency briefing room deep beneath the Pentagon, surrounded by the leaders of every branch of Earth's military. The holographic display showed the Zephyr system, with the Void Hunter fleet positions marked in ominous red. The scale of the threat was unlike anything humanity had ever faced. "How long do we have?" Chun asked. 17 hours before they begin what they call the real harvest," replied Dr. Elizabeth Harper from the Xenobiology Institute. She had been analyzing the alien database for the past 3 hours, her face growing paler with each new discovery. "Admiral, these creatures aren't just invaders. They're ecological disasters. Every world they've touched has become completely sterile. They consume all organic matter down to the bacterial level." General Marcus Rodriguez, head of Space Command, leaned forward. "What about our capability assessment? Can we even fight these things?" "That's the million-dollar question," Chun replied. "According to the alien database, no one has ever successfully stopped a Void Hunter harvest. They've been operating for over 5,000 years. But look at this." She highlighted a section of the Zephyrian data. "Their tactics are based on overwhelming technological superiority against peaceful species. They've never faced a military force that was designed for war." "Ma'am," interrupted Colonel Sarah Kim from Special Operations, "I've been reviewing their ship designs. These biomechanical vessels, They're evolved for intimidation and mass harvesting. But they show no evidence of advanced defensive systems. It's like they've never needed them. Chun nodded. Because they've never fought anyone who fought back effectively. The Zephyrians are healers and diplomats. Most galactic civilizations seem to be built around cooperation and peace. We're different. How different? Asked Dr. Harper. Chun pulled up humanity's file from the Zephyrian database. According to their assessment, we're classified as Deathworld apex predators. They think we're monsters because we evolved on a planet that actively tries to kill its inhabitants. They're terrified of us because we treat warfare as both a science and an art form. They can't understand a species that would willingly die to protect others. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. Humanity's reputation in the galaxy was that of dangerous savages, barely contained monsters who shouldn't be trusted with interstellar travel. To the Zephyrians, desperately facing extinction, those monsters represented their only hope. What's our fleet strength? Chun asked. We can mobilize the entire Terran defense fleet within 48 hours, Rodriguez replied. 200 ships total. 50 heavy cruisers, 80 destroyers, 60 frigates, and 10 dreadnoughts, plus support vessels. Total personnel, 50,000. Can we reach them in time? If we push the hyperspace engines to maximum, we can be there in 6 days. But Admiral, we'd be committing our entire fleet to a battle 47 light years from home against an enemy we've never faced. Chun looked around the room at her staff. These were people who had dedicated their lives to protecting Earth and humanity. They had trained for decades for threats that might come from space, never imagining that when first contact finally happened, it would be aliens begging for Earth's help. There's something else, Dr. Harper said quietly. The Zephyrians' medical technology is centuries ahead of ours. Their database contains cures for diseases we're still fighting. Cancer, genetic disorders, aging itself. If we save them, they've offered to share everything. And if we don't respond? Chun asked. Then an entire civilization dies, and we remain isolated. Eventually, these void hunters might find Earth. When that happens, we'll face them alone, with no allies and no experience fighting them. Chun made her decision with the certainty that had earned her the rank of Admiral. Signal all ships. Full mobilization. We leave for the Zephyr system in 36 hours. She looked around the room one more time. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to introduce the galaxy to the human concept of a rescue mission. Let's make sure they never forget it. As alarms began sounding across every human military installation, from the orbital shipyards above Earth to the mining colonies in the asteroid belt, the message was clear. Humanity's first step onto the galactic stage would not be as explorers or diplomats, but as warriors answering a desperate call for help. The Terran fleet would arrive at Zephyr Prime in exactly 144 hours. The question was whether there would be anyone left to save. When monsters become heroes, the Terran defense fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Zephyr system, like a storm of steel and fury materializing from the void. 200 human warships hung in the darkness, their angular hulls bristling with weapons that had been designed for one purpose: to turn other ships into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. Admiral Sarah Chun stood on the bridge of the TDF Defiance, humanity's newest dreadnought, watching the tactical displays update with information that made her jaw tighten. The beautiful aquamarine world of Zephyr Prime was dying. Massive sections of the planet's surface had been stripped away, leaving behind geometric scars that spoke of methodical harvesting. The Void Hunter fleet hung in orbit like a collection of nightmares, their biomechanical ships pulsing with dark energy. Jesus Christ, whispered Commander David Park, the fleet's tactical coordinator. There are 63 of them. Each one is the size of Manhattan. Status of the locals? Chun asked. her voice steady despite the horror unfolding before them. "We're picking up weak signals from the inner system," reported Lieutenant Commander Rachel Torres from the communications station. "Looks like maybe 24 Zephyrian ships hiding in the asteroid belt around the fourth planet. They're broadcasting emergency codes." Chun studied the tactical display. The Void Hunter fleet was arranged in a loose formation around Zephyr Prime, their ships moving in slow patterns that reminded her of sharks circling wounded prey. They showed no signs of having detected the human fleet, their attention focused entirely on the systematic destruction of the planet below. "Admiral," Torres called out, "I'm receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's in Galactic Standard, but the translation matrix is converting it to English. Put it through." The bridge speakers crackled with static, and a weak voice, filled with desperation. "This is Commander Velkane of the Zephyrian Emergency Response Division. Our position is compromised. The harvesters are moving toward the civilian shelters. We estimate 4 hours before they breach the final barriers. If anyone receives this message, if there's anyone out there who can help us, please. Our children are here. 3 million children in the deep shelters. Please don't let them die." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of ship systems. Chun looked around at her crew, seeing her own thoughts reflected in their faces. They had traveled 47 light years to answer a desperate call for help. Now they were here, and the dying was happening in real time. "Open a channel to the fleet," Chun ordered. "All ships, this is Admiral Chun, battle stations. We go in fast and hard. Primary targets are the harvester ships closest to the planet. Secondary targets are anything that moves toward our people. Rules of engagement. If it's not broadcasting a Zephyrian identification code, destroy it. No warnings, no negotiations. These things have been killing civilizations for 5,000 years. Today, they learn what happens when they threaten someone under human protection." The Terran fleet moved toward Zephyr Prime like a spear thrust into the heart of the enemy formation. The human ships were smaller than the Void Hunter vessels, sleek predators compared to the grotesque biomechanical monstrosities, but they moved with a coordination and purpose that the galaxy had never seen before. The first harvester ship detected the approaching humans when the TDF Retribution's missile salvo was already halfway to target. The biomechanical vessel began to turn, its organic components writhing as it tried to bring weapons to bear, but it was too late. 200 fusion-tipped missiles struck its hull in a pattern that human military doctrine called focused overkill. The explosion lit up space like a newborn star. "First kill confirmed," Park reported with grim satisfaction. "Target destroyed. Debris field expanding." The Void Hunter fleet reacted like a kicked ant hill. Ships that had been methodically harvesting the planet's surface suddenly wheeled toward the human fleet, their movements clumsy and disorganized. They had never faced an enemy that struck first and asked questions later. For 5 millennia, their victims had tried to negotiate, tried to find peaceful solutions, tried to avoid conflict until it was too late. Humans did none of those things. The TDF Vengeance and TDF Fury flanked a harvester ship twice their size, their combined firepower tearing through its biomechanical hull like tissue paper. The creature ship screamed across all frequencies as it died, a sound that would have broken the hearts of most civilized species. The human crews simply targeted the next ship in line. "Admiral," Torres called out, excitement clear in her voice. "I'm receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian ships in the asteroid belt. They want to know who we are." "Tell them we're the cavalry," Chun replied, "and ask them to keep their heads down." The battle for Zephyr Prime lasted exactly 47 minutes. When it was over, 63 Void Hunter ships had been reduced to expanding debris clouds, their biomechanical components slowly dying in the vacuum of space. Not a single human vessel had been lost The TDF stalwart would need 3 weeks in dry dock to repair the damage from a near miss. The galaxy's ancient nightmare was over. Ambassador Kael'Rin floated in the command center of the refugee. Ship gentle current, staring at the tactical display with an expression of absolute disbelief. 24 hours ago, his species had been facing extinction. Now, the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known was nothing but wreckage slowly orbiting his homeworld. "Sir," Communications Officer Niravel said softly, "the human fleet is requesting permission to approach. They're asking about survivors." On the planet's surface, Kael'Rin's gill slits fluttered rapidly. First contact with the galaxy's most feared species, and they were asking permission to approach. Not demanding surrender, not threatening conquest. Asking permission. "Granted," he said, and and thanked them. The human flagship moved slowly toward the Zephyrian refugee fleet, its weapon systems powered down in a gesture of peace. As it drew closer, Kael'Rin could see that it was beautiful in its own way, all clean lines and purposeful geometry. It looked exactly like what it was, a machine built for war by beings who understood war as both necessity and art. "Zephyrian vessels, this is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Fleet. We're here in response to your distress call. What's your status?" Kael'Rin activated the communication system with hands that shook only slightly. "Admiral Chun, this is Ambassador Kael'Rin of the Zephyrian Confederation. We ... We cannot express our gratitude. You saved our entire species." "That's what we came here to do." Chun's voice was warm, reassuring. "What's the situation on the planet?" "Our sensors show massive damage, but we're detecting life signs." "The harvesters were systematic," Kael'Rin explained. "They destroyed our cities and industrial centers first, but the deep shelters held. We estimate 40 million survivors on Zephyr Prime, maybe another 10 million scattered across the outer colonies. We're sending down medical and engineering teams," Chun said. "Our database shows your people are aquatic adapted. We've brought portable water processing units and emergency habitat domes. We'll have refugee camps operational within hours." Kael'Rin felt something he hadn't experienced in days: hope. "Admiral, according to our galactic database, your species is classified as quarantined. Dangerous. We sent that distress call knowing it might bring destruction rather than salvation." There was a pause before Chun responded. "Ambassador, I've read what your database says about us. Some of it is probably true. We are dangerous when we need to be. We do come from a world that most species would consider hell. But there's something your database doesn't mention. We protect what we consider ours. And as of today, the Zephyrian Confederation is under human protection." "What does that mean?" Kael'Rin asked. "It means that if anyone threatens your people again, they'll have to go through us first. And as you've just seen, that's not going to end well for them." Over the next 72 hours, the galaxy watched in amazement as the humans not only destroyed the Void Hunter fleet, but immediately began the largest humanitarian mission in recorded history. Ships that had been built for war disgorged medical supplies, construction equipment, and personnel trained in disaster relief. The same species that the galactic database classified as monsters worked around the clock to save Zephyrian civilians trapped in the ruins of their city's commander. Elena Vasquez led a team of human engineers into the flooded remains of New Coral City, diving through collapsed buildings to reach survivors trapped in air pockets. The water was toxic with alien chemicals, the structures unstable, but the humans pressed on with a determination that amazed their Zephyrian guides. "There," pointed guide Singer Colven, his tentacles indicating a partially collapsed medical center. "We can hear voices from the lower levels, but the water is too contaminated for us to enter." Vasquez checked her environmental suit readings. The water would eat through Zephyrian gill tissue in minutes, but human equipment could handle it. My team will go in. You stay here and coordinate with the surface. 3 hours later, Vasquez's team emerged with 47 Zephyrian medical staff who had been trapped for 5 days. As the survivors were loaded onto human transport shuttles, Colvin approached the exhausted engineer. "Why?" he asked simply. "Your database entry says humans are territorial predators. Why risk your lives for strangers?" Vasquez was quiet for a moment, watching the last of the survivors being evacuated. "Because that's what humans do," she said finally. "We fight monsters, even when we're the monsters everyone else is afraid of." The news of the human intervention spread across the galaxy faster than light could travel, carried by the same quantum. Communication networks that had once buzzed with fear about the quarantined species from the Sol system. The impossible had happened. Someone had not only survived an encounter with the Void Hunters, but had completely destroyed them. More importantly, the humans had done it to save strangers. On Altair Prime, the Emergency Council of the Altarian Empire convened for the first time in 300 years. Prime Counselor Zex Thul read the intelligence reports with growing amazement. The humans had traveled 47 light years, deployed their entire military fleet, and risked their lives for a species they had never met. It was behavior so alien to galactic norms that most civilizations couldn't comprehend it. They didn't ask for payment, Zex Thul announced to the stunned council. They didn't demand territory or resources. They simply saw beings in need and responded with force sufficient to eliminate the threat. Then they began rescue operations. "Impossible," declared War Leader Hexmort. "No species acts altruistically on such a scale. There must be an ulterior motive. Conquest, perhaps, or resource acquisition." "The reports are consistent across all sources," Zex Thul replied. "The humans are currently engaged in the largest humanitarian mission in galactic history. They've deployed construction teams, medical personnel, and supplies to rebuild Zephyrian civilization. They're asking for nothing in return except establishment of diplomatic relations." The council chamber fell silent. For 5,000 years, the galaxy had lived in fear of the void. Hunters, accepting their depredations as a natural disaster like supernovas or gamma-ray bursts. The idea that they could simply be ... stopped had never occurred to anyone. "What are our intelligence estimates regarding human military capability?" asked Science Leader Vel Coram. "Catastrophic," Hexmort admitted, "based on their performance. Against the Void Hunters, we estimate that human forces could eliminate our entire fleet within hours. Their weapons technology is at least 2 centuries ahead of our own, and their tactical coordination is unlike anything in our databases." "And their intentions toward the rest of the galaxy?" Zex Thul asked. "Unknown, but the Zephyrian reports suggest they have no territorial ambitions beyond their own solar system. They appear to be genuinely interested in peaceful coexistence." Zex Thul made a decision that would reshape galactic politics for the next 1,000 years. Prepare a diplomatic mission to the Sol system. It's time we officially welcomed humanity to the galactic community. Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds as the galaxy's civilizations grappled with a new reality. The monsters from the quarantined Deathworld weren't conquerors or destroyers. They were protectors. And suddenly, every species in the galaxy wanted to be under that protection. Back on Zephyr Prime, Admiral Chun stood on a temporary platform, overlooking the construction of New Haven City, humanity's first joint construction project with an alien species. Zephyrian architects worked alongside human engineers, creating structures that blended both technologies in ways that neither species could have achieved alone. Ambassador Kael'Rin approached, moving with the fluid grace of his aquatic ancestry. "Admiral, I wanted to thank you again, not just for saving us, but for staying to help rebuild. Chun smiled. It's what neighbors do, Ambassador. Besides, we're learning as much from you as you're learning from us. Your medical technology has already saved thousands of human lives back on Earth. The Galactic Council has requested a formal audience with human representatives, Kaelrin said. They want to offer membership and full diplomatic recognition. After 5,000 years of refusing to acknowledge your species, they're practically begging for an alliance. Times change, Chun replied. Fear has a way of clarifying priorities. There's something else, Kaelrin continued. We've received reports from across the galaxy. Other species are requesting human assistance with their own problems. Pirates, raiders, territorial disputes. It seems everyone wants the protection of Earth's military. Chun looked out over the bustling construction site, where humans and Zephyrians worked side by side to build something new and beautiful from the ashes of destruction. We'll help where we can, she said, but we're not going to be the galaxy's police force. We're here to make friends, not collect vassals. And if another threat like the Void Hunters appears, Chun's expression hardened slightly. Then they'll learn the same lesson. There are monsters in this galaxy, Ambassador. Ancient, terrible things that feed on fear and destruction. But there are also humans. And humans have our own reputation to maintain. As the binary suns of the Zephyr system set behind the crystalline spires of the new city, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, the galaxy began to understand a fundamental truth. The monsters from Earth weren't the thing to be afraid of. They were the thing the monsters should be afraid of. The age of human isolation was over. The age of human protection had begun.